I love the fact that USENIX so early on went to the open access model of publication. We do great inventions, we write great papers, but if they're not accessible to everyone, I think we can't make progress.
As researchers, we want people to read our work, to cite it, to benefit from it, to continue that cycle of development and learning and innovation and education. And I've always appreciated how USENIX makes all the papers available for free immediately.
The computer science community publishes in conferences, not in journals. And USENIX runs some of the best ones, and it's open access, which is also very important. I've published in other places, but the breadth of USENIX conferences is so great that I'm delighted always to publish there. And again, this has been my professional home for so many years.
Who was the first organization that opened up our library? And that was an extremely challenging thing for us to do, was to say we were going to give up our revenue to have our publications free. But we talked about it and said, damn it, if we really are the open organization that we are, we have to be willing to actually act that way. I think that's a statement of the internet. And that's an example of the internet picked up something from us.
The fact that USENIX is a open access organization has also been incredibly useful. I've run privacy engineering for multiple companies, and I have people both in my teams or people who are interested in the field coming to me and going, how do I learn privacy engineering? There isn't anything other than the videos from Pepper. And I just have to I send them there and I say, this is where people are talking about what's actually happening, what a lot of the trade-offs are, what's really tough, how do you deal with it in a way that is very difficult to get unless you are going to go learn everything the hard way yourself, which I have done and I do not recommend.
It was a sharing community, and it's still there. The fact that USENIX has championed the publications the way they have, with open access. We started out open, and unfortunately it has stayed open. And I think that's really important.
We were very collaborative. We shared everything. We had to share everything. We all understood that if we didn't help each other, nobody was going to make any progress.
It's a lot like the invention of the printing process, where suddenly authorship was democratized. Anybody could be an author, could write a book. And we're reaching a similar stage where just about anybody can, develop computers code and develop an application. And in some ways, that's very democratizing, right? It means there's no longer this kind of, for Lord of the Rings, there's this secret cult of people that have this knowledge that they're not willing to share with anybody else. They want to protect. And it'll be interesting to see, because certainly the graybeards from the USENIX Association are sort of the opposite of that. They've got this knowledge that they want to push out and make sure gets shared.
So a couple of years ago, USENIX Security started a new open science policy, and open science means different things to different people. It has lots of different aspects to it. The part that USENIX Security is really focused on is the artifacts. One of the things that USENIX Security did was that by default, we're going to have artifacts be available during the submission process. Now, this is sometimes interpreted in different ways, but it's not necessarily a hard and fast rule. But I think the overall effort of sort of by default of having it available in there will lead to a net positive to pushing science forward.
I've never gone and talked to somebody who publishes and said, and had them tell me, oh, I only want people to be able to read my work if the publisher has been properly compensated.
We've got companies that will come and talk openly about their failures, because one of the important things about site reliability is that we've discovered and adopted the practice from other industries such as aviation and healthcare, that talking openly about our failures gives us the opportunity to learn from them and to do better. USENIX, as part of our open access policy, takes all of the presentations and puts them out on the web for people to look at.
Some people produce research that is so practical. We have all the open source that came out of the 80s and the 90s. That was very practical too. When you're thinking about writing a paper, if you have what we now call artifacts, which we used to consider, well, source code, okay, you have something that works, that actually supports your research, this is much more likely to still be in use and people still know about your paper 10 years from now. So I'm a real big fan of pragmatic work.
Part of the incentive here is that when you go and do research and you're trying to compare your work to some prior work, if that work isn't available, it's really hard to do that apples to apples comparison. It provides a bit of a sort of check and balance to the things that are claimed in papers, so we can go and validate those claims independently. I think as we have more and more discussions around the impact of artificial intelligence and what that means to the publication process, I think it's even more vital that we have these artifacts that are available.
So when Eric started SendMail, it was sort of the first commercial company whose product was open source software. And when they would go to investors would say, how can you make any money on something that anybody can get for free? Today, everybody has open source software as at least the base of what they're operating on, if not their core product.
Even if they don't run open source software, they certainly rely on open source software to build.
If you have closed source software, all of the development and debugging has to be done in-house, and that's just too expensive when there's a huge workforce out there that'll help you. And so it's open source is just a thing today. And that's another thing that, that culture came up through USENIX and, was sort of inculcated as a way of doing things.
The values are more related to what we can give back to the community. Being a place where we are encouraging the next generation to do their best work. The open access part of it, I feel like, is a great value that USENIX brings and something that I have really been proud of.